Oh, goodness gracious, what a great thing to be here. It's good to be home, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, So many things have happened since I was last here. And the first one I want to share with you is that one of our members last Sunday morning got a little ahead of us. His name's Don Height. This is a picture of Don. Some of you might recognize him. Don and his beautiful wife, Robin, have never been like front and center in the limelight of our center, but they have been here since 2008 as members, participating in learning the science of mind. And last Sunday, Don, with his family on vacation in a campsite outside of Washington, D.C., left. And I'll start by saying that it's amazing to me and wonderful to me, and I am deeply touched that, Robin, you're here with us this morning, going through this in the past week. You're amazing. So we celebrated Don's life yesterday over at the Grove Park Inn because Don is a very successful businessman. Not always, but I believe that his starting a business in 2000, thereabouts, and bringing in his brother as a partner and building what some of you will recognize as Airflow Healthcare, a national organization headquartered here in Asheville, a very successful, growing organization that helps thousands upon thousands of people with their healthcare supply needs. Amazing to have a vision and actually create something so dynamically successful, but that's exactly what Don and all those people around him did. So yesterday I had the distinct honor of speaking at his memorial service, and it was an amazing experience to hear so many people speak so wonderfully of this brilliant man. Robin did first, and then Don's brother and business partner, and then others came up. And I have to say the one that got me was a woman sitting in the back, an African-American woman that was an employee of Aeroflow, came forward, shaking. Not into public speaking at all, but she had to say this. She said that she's worked for the company for 2 years, that when she came to the Christmas party of the company, she was sitting by herself at the table, and Don came over and sat with her. He came over and sat with her. And of the 180 employees that Aeroflow has, he looked her in the eye and said, "Thank you for what you do to make this work." She said at that moment, she knew this was like no job she'd ever had, and that her life was changed. And my guess is, you never know, but I would bet that woman retires from Aeroflow someday. Yeah, quite amazing. So this beloved one, we won't see him in his body anymore, is still among us. He's still in my heart. And I know that his gifts to this community were gifts in consciousness, because he took what we teach and he made it work in the world. And I'm just very grateful. Thank you, Don. Thank you.
John Barbie gave me such a strength and I know he's exactly today at 11:45 when the doctor's in. So thank you all very much for being a part of my family and part of my life.
You are. This is your home.
And I know that he is loved and he is all around, and I can see him in all of your faces. And I thank you.
Okay, everybody breathe. This is actually a beautiful story of this man, and I'll share that with you again in a little while. Here's my topic this morning: probabilities and possibilities. Just before I get going there, I also want to just share that I had a marvelous experience in Mexico. It was the first time that all of our Mexican ministries came together from all over that country, even from Peru and some from the United States, to celebrate what's happening in Mexico with the science of mind. It's a beautiful thing. And they pushed me in a lovely, wonderful way by telling me that many of them want to become ministers and we're going to make that happen. Yeah. Probabilities and possibilities. Think about those two words. Their root words are probable and possible. Which one seems logically the better thing to have? Something that's probable or something that's possible?
Possible.
Most people in the language choose probable. It increases their odds, so they think. But we're students of the science of mind, and what we live in is possibilities. But I want to play with this idea of probabilities, because it is the favorite word of the two. It's like, in fact, when I did some research, I found that most of the quotes about these two words, connecting them, relating them, is that you should turn your possibilities into probabilities. Well, let's look at that. Let's consider what that might look like if we do that. We use the word probability in a lot of scientific thinking in our lives. Here's one. Tomorrow's forecast calls for 20% chance of rain. What does that mean? A, it will rain tomorrow in 20% of the region. B, it will rain tomorrow in 20% of the time. C, it will rain 20% of the days like tomorrow. D, 20% of weather forecasters believe it will rain tomorrow. How many think it's A? Raise your hand if you think it's A. Okay, raise your hand if you think it's B. What do you think it is? Who thinks it's C? So we only have 5 people in the room that are going to take a chance on this. You think it's the forecasters? Let's do it again. How many think it's A? Okay, we got a few more at a time. Maybe think it's B? More, okay. C? Oh, we got 4 that time. Wow, okay. The correct answer is C. Huh? Yeah, it is. It actually, when they say that on the news, that's what they mean. I know, who knew? The probability of rain is based on the days that the weather looked like it does today compared to all the other days when it looked like today. What will the likelihood of showers the next day? That's how they do it. Go figure. Probabilities. Now, probabilities in weather is one thing. We're all going to survive whether it rains or not. What about around health matters? Probabilities. How many of you have ever heard a doctor talk about a percentage, one way or the other? Probably a lot of you. Yeah. Because science tends to like the idea of probabilities and using statistics. So, if you're told that a drug has a high probability of causing a particular side effect, what percentage does that mean? How many think it's 10%? 2. How many think it's 35%? Okay. How many think it's 72%? And 98%? It's 10%. I know! So here's one of the interesting things about these two examples. The word probability is given to you by somebody else. You're not determining probabilities. Probabilities are science. They are statistical. They are mathematical. They are not how you're feeling about it. They're not what you think about it. So what you do is you're relying on the experts to tell you what the truth is. Huh. How's that working out? Oh, here's another piece about that. A minimalist risk, rather than a high probability, a very low probability, would be 1,000th of 1%. And still they would call it a risk factor for a side effect. So that's medicine for you. I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about a guy. This guy's Brian Zinkman Fisher. I got notes on this guy, so I'm going to use my notes to share my thoughts on this. Dr. Brian Zinkman Fisher teaches at University of Michigan School of Public Health. He is an expert in risk and probability. While he was studying for his doctorate, he was studying behavioral decision therapy, or theory, behavioral decision therapy in graduate school, and at the same time was diagnosed with what's called myelodysplastic syndrome, or something like that. which meant that he couldn't produce blood cells properly, making him susceptible to bleeding and infection. So when he learned about this condition, there were some probabilities in there. He was told that if he did not have treatment, that he would probably die within 10 years. Now, at this time, his wife was pregnant with their first child. And so he's looking at this, that by the time his child is 10, she would not have a father. He didn't like that idea. So he looked at the other possibilities, and this is what they told him. He could have a blood marrow transplant. A bone marrow transplant, correct, say it right. And his doctors told him that because of the chemotherapy and the risks of infection in doing that he would have roughly 20 to 30% probability that the process would kill him. That was his other option. So what did Brian do? How did he deal with this life and death situation? Well, he concluded that with no transplants, that he would have 10 years with his child, but that he'd be in and out of the hospital a lot, and that's what she would remember. So he took the risk. And he said, let's do the surgery. And sure to the statistics, the 20 people that were in the hospital, in that ward, having that bone marrow transplant done for this condition, 4 of them never left the hospital. 16 of them did. So that's a little better than the averages he was given, the probability he was given. But what he learned from that, and what he teaches his students at the medical school now, is that you can't apply these general statistics and probabilities to any one person. It doesn't work. Because in his case, the process worked 100% of the time. And in the case of someone who passed in that process, the process worked 0% of the time. There's no middle ground. So when we rely on this idea of probability, what we're getting, even though the term is probable, we're getting a win-lose scenario. We're getting information that's guiding us into a great level of risk. But we're students of the science of mind. That's not the way we think. We don't think about probabilities. That's not what guides us. So here's a picture of Brian right after his chemotherapy with his wife and his little girl. And that surgery was 15 years ago. The laws of probability, so true in general, so fallacious in particular. That comes from Edward Gibbon, who was a historian in England. And it's so true that when we hear these ideas of what's probable, we're basing it on someone else's model, someone else's perspective, someone else's broad look across a population. And with all due respect to all these good mathematicians and scientists and researchers and doctors and weathermen, that's a bunch of bunk. We get to choose. Now, we don't get to choose every condition in our lives. Robin didn't get to choose last Sunday morning, because she would have chosen differently. But we do get to say how good our life is. We do get to say what our life is going to feel like. Sure, there are times when we go up into amazing experiences and times when we fall into experiences where we don't know the outcome and we get scared. That's the human experience. And I would not take that away from any of us. But what we tend to forget is that we are really in charge of our lives. We are in charge of what we're feeling at any moment. Those folks, bless their hearts, who try to learn from paying attention to their emotions are missing the point. We're creating our emotional state. We're creating our lives. And although in those moments that it doesn't make any sense, it's still us in the driver's seat. So, what do you do with that information? Well, we believe in infinite possibilities. That's the nature of who we are as we explore this spiritual path. But do we live in those kinds of possibilities? How many people know who Willard is? Oh, good. Lots of you still know Willard. Willard's been gone for a few years now, but when he was alive, this was one of the most amazing people I ever met. He was very flamboyant. You could tell by the hair. He was from Louisiana, so he spoke with a Cajun accent. And he would tell you about God in a different way than I'd ever heard from anybody. He would tell you the stories of healings that seemed so outrageous and so ridiculous. I met Willard at the Miami Center for Spiritual Living, for Creative Living. It was called, I think, Positive Living. It's called Miami Center for Positive Living. And one of the ministers was Barbara. And I'd been there about a year when Willard showed up. Barbara had met him at another church in Miami and invited him over, and he came over and did his thing. And his thing was a lot of storytelling and then a laying on of hands, something we of course don't do in religious lives. But he had everybody, after he shared all of his amazing stories, come up. And I had shown up that day, and I was told to bring a mirror, kind of a dental mirror so I could look inside my mouth. I didn't. But, so the person sitting next to me, I asked her to look at her mirror, and I opened my mouth, and I showed her where I have one filling in my mouth. Just one. That's all I ever had. I got it when I was 19. Teeth were perfect other than that. You know, no other cavities that I was aware of. And I'd been to the dentist, so I didn't think there was anything to be concerned about. And I showed her, you know, and we saw that I had one filling, and I handed it back to her, and we went through this thing. And the way we came up was we kind of came up communion style. Everybody came up, and he put his hands on our face and said, "In the name of Jesus, be thou every whit whole. In the name of Jesus, be thou every whit whole. In the name of Jesus, be thou every whit whole." And he would say that to each person and touch the sides of their face. And I was about halfway back. And when I was finished, we went back down and sat down. I tasted something kind of metallic in my mouth. And I asked the woman I was sitting with, Sharon, for the mirror. Barbara remembers Sharon. And I said, "Let me see that mirror." And I opened my mouth, and there were 4 fillings in there. I started laughing. I started, and I missed all the other amazing things happening in the room, which I had to learn about later. One was a 12-year-old whose parents had just put thousands of dollars into having his teeth filled, and when they looked in his mouth, he didn't have any, so I guess I got 3 of his. Another woman had railroad track braces on, had just been to her orthodontist and been told that she would have to wear those for at least another year. She went in the next day, and he took the braces off, saying, "I don't understand, but your teeth are perfect." And on and on and on with these stories. The big thing that I got out of meeting Willard Fuller is that I knew anything was possible. But now I had to live with the witness of that. I'd seen something that was absolutely impossible, implausible, unrealistic, crazy. My dentist told me it was the work of the devil. And he wouldn't see me anymore. I'm like, no. No, he wouldn't do it. And that's just one example. And since then, how many times in my life has something occurred that seemed completely implausible? It shouldn't have happened. Yet there it was. It was there because it existed in the realm of possibility, the infinite realm of possibility. And my thinking brought it forth. I have no special powers, no greater powers than you. Yet I know that what I want in my life is to live in that realm of potentiality. I want to live in that place where anything is possible. And because of that, anything is equally possible. The things that I think are more probable are no more possible than something that hasn't quite gotten into my consciousness yet. The only difference is, where am I focusing my attention, and what is it that I'm calling forth in my life? Now, I'm not trying to give anybody a false sense of things. Every life is unfolding perfectly. The challenge for me is that too many of us have this limiting thinking that we can only go so far with it. That, oh, no, I can't achieve that. I can't have that outcome. I can't be that at peace or that joyful because of this. That's all made up stuff, folks. You live in a universe of infinite possibility. Infinite possibility. There are no exceptions. John Kennedy said that we would have people walking on the moon. And we did. Some people still think that was made up. But I believe people went to the moon. Human beings went to the moon and bounced around in that light gravity because he said we could do it. That's the nature of leadership. And we all are in charge of our own leadership. We lead ourselves into whatever is before us. So when we're stuck in that thing of, is this a good idea or a bad idea? Like, well, I need a job, but there just aren't many jobs in Asheville. Or, I've got this illness and the doctor says that I have a 48% chance, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to hear it. Those are all lies. If you want a job, then create a job. If you want to change in your physical state, then change your physical state. If you're in a physical state because you have some direction that you're going in your life, like it's time to go ahead and leave, there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody can leave anytime they want. But if you want to stay and want to participate in this physical experience called life on planet Earth, then your job is to take charge of that and to be aware of that realm of infinite possibility and throw all the probabilities out the window. Because anything that's in there is in you. Interesting quote. The new always happens against the overruling odds of statistical laws and their probability, which for all practical everyday purposes amounts to certainty. The new, therefore, always appears to be in the guise of a miracle. Have a miracle, folks. Have a miracle in your life. Let your joy be your miracle. Let your success be your miracle. Stop limiting yourself because somehow in your realm of thinking it isn't quite possible. It is more than possible. You can have whatever you set for it. And then my hero in the world of philosophy, Benedictus Spinoza. In practical life, we are compelled to follow what is most probable. In speculative thought, we are compelled to follow truth. The truth is that you are God. You are the same thing that created the universe. You are the wholeness, the fullness, the richness of life. When you deny yourself that and think small, you get small. But you could do something like Don Height and have an idea about to help thousands of people, about the idea of being in a loving, beautiful family. He came from a broken home. His parents divorced. And he was intent on staying in his family and making that work. He has a son who has special needs. And he made that work. He made his life work right up to the last breath. Any of us and all of us can learn from Don Height and make our lives work like that. And then when we go, yes, people will miss us. But we will have changed the world by being who we are. Don did. That's my intention. I want it to be your intention too. To change the world. That's what's important. There's something out there for you. Something wonderful. May not seem clear. May seem far away. But it's there for you. And no one else can get it but you. No one else can give it but you. This is the work that we do. We are extraordinary beings of love and light. We get to choose. We get to decide. Everything's possible. I love you very much.